I'm not in this world, but I got a call from Phil Leonetti one time. You know Phil Leonetti.
I've never met him. I don't know the guy. No.
But you know the name.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
Right.
I don't know the guy.
He calls me and we go to a nice Italian restaurant, and the next day we do the interview. He asked me to cover his face so it's not shown, and we talk about...
Why? What is he covering his face for? What is he ashamed of?
Because he did some maybe surgeries that he didn't want his face to be seen or whatever it may have been.
Like Gravano did?
He had stories that he said about Nicky Scarfo, right? And then we had Ralph Natali there, and then he told his stories.
Right.
Then we had Frank Collada, no longer with us, the late Frank Collada. Right. And he was part of the Spilatra crew, I believe. Oscar Goodman, great conversation.
Great lawyer.
Great lawyer.
Oscar Goodman's a great lawyer.
Yeah. Michael Francis, multiple sit-downs. Sammy the Bull, multiple.
Right.
And then eventually we did Mafia States of America. And you know what is common, like a thread amongst everybody? And I think this goes credit to the life, which whatever the orientation is, when you're being indoctrinated in this world, whatever that is, whoever explained the pain of Omerta, they did such a great job selling it.
Right.
Because it's like at this age, look, man, let me save face. Here's why I did. Here's why I did it. To the average person. Right. To the person that's not in this world, we're not in it. We're just watching it. It's interesting stories. But there is this pride to say, this is why I had the meeting with feds. And what is consistent amongst everybody across the board, none of them like him. They all are not fans of the government. And they all feel like the story has been told in a different way.
But they liked him when they were in the life, right? And they didn't feel the pain of the life when they were in the life. They felt the pain when they went to prison, I guess. I guess that nip, that pain hit them when they got to prison, right? Well, what pain should have I felt when they rolled me onto the death row unit? Should I have felt some pain? What do you think if I would have turned around and said, hey, guys, you got me. That's it. This is it. Uncle. Government says organized crime exists, right? They say there's entities in New York that control New York, right? Do you think that would have existed if the son of John Gotti became a rat? What damage do you think I could have done if I was a rat? What damage? The government said from 1990, my father went to prison, till I went to prison in 1998. They said I was the acting boss. What damage in that? Gravano was of driftwood in and out. They said I was the acting boss. What damage could I have done if that was all true? And so it is true. I was never any acting boss. I was the guy who held the door open for the boss. Okay, John Gotti was the boss always. I'm nobody.
Sammy said, once a mafioso, you're a mafioso for life.
Is he still a mafioso, he thinks?
Well, he says it's a lifestyle.
Selling drugs to little kids in Arizona, he's a mafioso? That's the mafia? He'll blame it on his son. Nice, how convenient. Well, guess what? I heard a lot of the wiretaps. Let's see. His son was coming to him and taking money off of him, and they're talking about a drug deal. That's how you encourage your kid? If you remember correctly, when Sammy Gravano first said he flipped, this is his very first time he said he flipped, he did an interview. He said that he was in prison, he got to ponder the situation, he wanted to change his life, and he wanted to save his kid. He wanted to save his son. He wanted to save him from that lifestyle. That's what he said, right? I didn't say it, he said this. And yet, you come home after your rat, you got absolution for 19 murders, you got the deal of the century. You did less than 4 years. 19 bodies are in the street, 2 innocent people. Of that 19, 2 were stone cold innocent. One was a little boy, 16 years old, okay? You came home and you go into the narcotics business and sell drugs to little kids, and you bring your kid along and your wife and your daughter? That was your way of saving your son? Interesting. That's like me saying, Dad, put me on the shelf for life. I don't want to be in the life anymore. And the moment I get home, I tell my son, drive the car. I got to go kill somebody. I just told you, my son's grandkids were named John Gotti. What do you want to do, Dad? What do we do at the end here? When do we stop this? Does everybody have to go to jail? Everybody? All of us have to go to jail? Could we save them at least? So me giving that speech to a dying man, a man I adored, me giving him that speech, and then I go home after all of this, and I take my son, John Gotti, and his other grandson, John Gotti, and I go commit crimes with them. I lied right to a dying man's face, did I not?
Let me ask you.
That's what's akin to what he did, Gravano.
Because I think the only thing, and would you ever sit across with Sammy?
Never.
Tell me why.
I received a message from a lawyer from New Jersey. Right. I think the message came from you, and please correct me if it wasn't. Years back.
Was lawyer's first name James?
It was.
Yeah.
And he said, I can get you $1 million, John, if you sit across the table from Gravano, and they're going to give him $500,000. And I said, not for $10 million, okay? Not for $10 million will I do it. I sit with that low life in the room. And again, I never knew him. He could have went home from prison and lived his life and done his thing. But when you try to take down someone like John, who did everything by the rule book, even I, as his son, okay, don't have the right to be angry at any aspect of my father. And believe me, there are some aspects. I don't have that right because the life that he chose and the life that I chose, that I walked away from, and the life that Gravano chose, the only one of those three in the equation that actually lived it in its totality was John Gotti. So how dare we even say anything negative about John Gotti? Me, I walked away. You ratted. You buried people and buried families. You don't have the right to take any of that, any of John's glory. That's called stolen honor, stolen glory. Stolen valor, they call it in the military. It's called stolen valor. You don't have the right to steal John's valor. I don't agree with John Gotti. I don't think John had it all right. I look at it from this perspective, okay? I think the streets, they destroy families. And I think most of the guys, many of the guys, not most, many of the guys in the streets, I think are cowards. You want to know why I think they're cowards? I'm going to tell you why. Because when you go to prison, you have to hang on the fact that you were in a group. I think most gangbangers are cowards. They got to belong to something, okay? Go to prison by yourself. Be a stand-up guy and go to jail by yourself and belong to nobody. Go to a penitentiary or go to a disciplinary 4 or some of those joints and be on your own. Get my respect. Then be a man. I fought the United States government without the entity the government calls the Gambino crime family behind me, or without belonging to the government. I fought them alone. My wife, my children, and my dear brothers that loved me. With no money at the end, no money. I hawked diamond watches to fight the government, and I fought them, and I beat them, and I'm home, and I retired a lot of their cooperators, and a lot of men are coming home now because of me, okay, because of me. And to answer your question, does that bother me? It certainly does. You have no right. But it doesn't bother me nearly as much because the people that matter know who I am is nearly as much as Gravano taking my father's valor. Like I said, that life to me, I'm 26 years removed. I'm not impressed anymore. I'm not impressed by them. You want to impress me, stand on your own 2 goddamn feet. John Gotti fought the government, but he had an army behind him. He certainly had a loyal son in his corner. He had an army behind him. And he was a folk hero throughout. I fought the United States government with limited reserves, no army behind me. I went to prison by myself. I did my time. I didn't walk around and say, hey, I'm John Gotti. I got the whole Gambino family behind me. I did it my own time. I did my bid. Okay? I did my time. So to answer your question, that angers me to have someone like a Gravano, that you took the punk way out, went to a punk prison, went to a punk unit in ADX, Colorado. ADX, Colorado is a serious place. It took over for Marion. Serious place. But he didn't do serious time. He went into a rat unit and did time with rats. That's what he did. Fellow rats. He wasn't with any men there because he wouldn't have made the bid. They would have ate him up.
John, first of all, James, if you're watching this, I never said $1.5 million. Why are you over negotiating?
No, he said $1 million for me and $500,000 for Gravano.
Don't count my money, James. I'm going to call James. We're going to have a conversation.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me and he read the book. And afterwards, it's like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at the society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm gonna put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.